Hi, Brooke. Yes, these pictures are live, and the tear gas clouds are just coming up to the balcony where we have our position. You can see these fires dotted around the square. The violence has been going in sort of waves for the last hour. People very, very angry for all those reasons that you cited. Basically, the government, the parliament is debating right now whether to push through another round of austerity cuts with wage cuts, pension cuts, tax hikes, and the people, as you can see, are very, very angry about it. They've already gone through a year of austerity. They say that they cannot take it anymore, that this government is basically being blackmailed by the European Union and the IMF, who've told George Papandreou, the Greek Prime Minister, that unless he gets this new package of austerity measures through the Parliament, they aren't going to give him any more money, and Greece will then go bankrupt. And Greece has some maturing debts to pay back in the middle of next month. And if it doesn't get the money to pay that back from the EU and the IMF, then the possibility of a Greek default is very, very real. But you can see that the people on the street don't care about that. You know, when I spoke to them earlier, they say, essentially, we feel bankrupt anyway. What can this do to us? The EU and the IMF are not our bosses. They don't have faith in their politicians either. And this scene that you see in front of you is really the signs of people who are fed up with what is going on. They don't have any solutions as to which way Greece should go to solve its debt problems, but they say further austerity isn't the way, Brooke.
These pictures, it took me a moment for my eyes to adjust. I don't know if Joe's behind the camera, if you guys could pull out again, but it was that shot, that wide shot, and what is plumes of smoke. You know, I initially thought it was maybe concrete. Now take a look, people are running. Diana, what is going on down there? What's going off? What kind of explosion is that?
Well, that's, first of all, the big bangs are normally stun grenades thrown by the police. Basically, they're very, very loud explosions to stun the protesters, to slightly blind them for 5 seconds or so, and then they fire tear gas canisters into the crowds. Many, many people out on the streets come prepared. You know, the Greeks are known for their riots. They happen quite regularly here, and certainly over the past year. So many of these protesters have come equipped with gas masks, with all sorts of, they've painted their face white to try and sort of counteract the effects of the tear gas. But yes, the violence started at around midday today when the demonstrators reached the square, and it kicked off then, and it's showing no signs of letting up. And this is just the first day of general strikes. You could expect thousands more people in this square tomorrow when the government does actually vote on whether to push through that austerity program. And I don't want to bet necessarily on these things, but I would imagine, Brooke, that we'll be seeing similar scenes tomorrow.
California is not out of the woods just yet. We sent our meteorologist Nina Petersons west. She's live in Escondido, just north of San Diego, where crews are preparing for a long wildfire season. You and I have covered this story for a long time. It's not often we're talking about it in May.
It's so hard to be talking about this early. We're actually coming to you here from a place called Harmony Grove. This is a community center, a spiritual community center that celebrated its 117-year anniversary just a week ago on Wednesday. They were evacuated with only about an hour's amount of time to gather all of their belongings, and then they had to wait a long wait till about Saturday or Sunday till they were able to return to this. 25 out of 30 of the structures that were here completely lost down to the ground. Very hard to see what's even left. It looks like maybe this is a garage door that was here. You know, you take a little bit of a look farther to the east and you can actually see all you have left are just several mailboxes. And unfortunately, this is the site all across Southern California from just these devastating wildfires in the last week. Erupting one right after another, San Diego plagued by dozens of wildfires. Speculation of arson on the rise.
The way CAL FIRE operates, while the firefighters are battling the fire, our own law enforcement comes in and does an extensive investigation.
3 men now in custody, 2 teens, 19-year-old Isaiah Silva and a 17-year-old arrested after police say witnesses reported seeing 2 people set small fires in Escondido. In Oceanside, one 57-year-old man now charged for setting off a smaller 100-acre fire, pleading not guilty, facing up to 7 years in prison. All arrests unrelated to the 8 major blazes, reducing more than 40 homes to ashes. Charcoal remains of a week-long battle across San Diego County, with over 25,000 acres burned. Thousands of evacuees returning to what looks like a war zone, the nightmare still fresh in their minds.
Right as we finished packing our suitcases, we heard a helicopter overhead saying, get out now. And you could see a plume of smoke and flames coming down the corridor.
Harmony Grove, a small community in Escondido once filled with over 30 homes, now leveled by the flames.
It's all gone. I have my dog and my family and my friends still, and that's what's important.
The blaze is now nearly contained after thousands of firefighters and the military banded together. One firefighter selfie showing his crew exhausted in San Marcos turned viral as thousands expressed their gratitude.
The crews last night did a lot of hard work. Those of us in the fire service are very concerned, and we're prepared to try to deal with any fire that breaks out.
Here's the good news. We're starting to see a low-pressure system just to north of California. So over the last several days, we've already seen the marine layer return, the humidity come up, temperatures go down. Even a chance for drizzle is possible this week. So no fire danger left in Southern California, but that's not to say it doesn't exist. It just means that fire danger has now shifted farther to the east. So you're in places like Arizona or New Mexico today, you do have the red flag warnings and that heightened fire danger. There is rain somewhere in the country, and that is the good news. Again, we're talking about in the Pacific Northwest, but also in the upper Midwest and the northern plains today. We're starting to see a cold front make its way through. So maybe about 1 to 2 inches of rain with this guy, eventually spreading into the northeast by the middle of our week. Temperature-wise, it's going to be a little on the cool side. Maybe some relief. It was that hot and muggy for a little bit. The northeast is going to feel good. Temperatures there, 60s and 70s. But if you're in the south, temperatures, they're starting to go up. It's going to get pretty hot out there. Meanwhile, finally here on the west coast where we need it, the relief is here. Temperatures back to where they should be. No longer are we talking about temperatures a good 25 degrees above the records. That is what we were dealing with here, guys, just a week ago. Chris and Kate.
All right, Indra, thank you so much for the update. Good to know they're getting at least some bit of a break, but now look what they're still dealing with.
Man, good to have Indra out there.
Oh my God!
It's been 4 days since the floodwaters rose in Texas. And for the families of those still missing, 4 days of agony mixed with hope.
We're eternally optimistic that they may show up. We're hoping and praying that miracles will happen, and we're very optimistic, but at the same time, we're very realistic in this situation.
Joe McComb's son Jonathan, along with daughter-in-law Laura, 6-year-old grandson Andrew, and 4-year-old granddaughter Layton were thrown into the raging Blanco River after their house was ripped off its foundation.
And Jonathan said as they were floating down the river, the house ran into a bridge and the house just shattered. And the floodwaters and the volume and the speed that it was coming, he said it started just washing all of them in all different directions.
Jonathan was listed as missing, but then miraculously was found, according to his father, as far as 12 miles away from where his house once stood, with a collapsed lung and broken sternum. His wife and children are still missing. 5 more listed as missing were in the same ill-fated house, friends of the McCombs. Ralph Carey, his wife Sue, their daughter Michelle, her husband William, and their 6-year-old son, also named William.
There were 9 of them in the house, and he's the only one that made it out and is accounted for. So that's taking a toll on him emotionally and psychologically.
Authorities reported late today that the body of Michelle has been found. The rest of her family still missing. One ray of hope, the McCombs family dog Maggie was found in a tree near the Blanco River. She's now being treated by veterinarians from the Texas A&M Animal Hospital. 81-year-old Kenneth Reisig is also missing. He was last seen here. About 10 miles away, 74-year-old Dayton Larry Thomas was last seen in his home. He is beloved by this community.
He will be really missed. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's very tragic just to know how he died, too. I mean, you know, we think he died. You know, he's missing right now.
And just yesterday, in a suburb of Houston, the car of 73-year-old Alice Tovar was found submerged in water, with the driver nowhere to be found. Tonight, her family, like many others in Texas, continue to search for the missing, holding on to hope.
She's cold, she's wet, she belongs at home, and that's where we're trying to get her. And I feel for the others that are going through the same situation, and may God be on their shoulder.
Around the world now increased fears of terror attacks here at home. My next guest was targeted by ISIS after he condemned the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris, but he says another group scares him more than ISIS. Joining me now is Professor Yasser Qadhi of Rhodes College in Memphis. Why are you more afraid of one group than the other, and which group is that?
Well, Don, first, thanks for having me on the show.
the fact of the matter is I've been getting death threats from 2 camps for the last few years. Around 3.5 years ago, certain segments of our own American public who were misinformed about the Islamic faith and who assumed that every Muslim is somehow a potential terrorist, they developed certain ideas about me based on a doctored audio clip. And there are a number of far-right radical websites that are claiming that I'm some type of stealth jihadist preacher. And based on that, they launched a campaign against my employer to fire me. They inundated me with hate mail and, yes, some threats as well. The FBI got involved and had to deal with that type of rhetoric. And then a few days ago, 10 days ago, ISIS also threatened me because I was criticizing them. So I'm kind of getting threats from both sides of the spectrum. We have certain misinformed Americans and we also have certain radical Muslims, and the both of them are projecting their fears of the other onto
But you said
me.
you're more afraid of the right-wing radicals than you are of ISIS, correct?
Yes, I am.
How did you find out that you were, obviously you found out you were being targeted by the groups on the right through the internet. You said that because they reached out. How did you find out that you were being targeted by ISIS, though?
Well, I'm an academic, I'm a professor, and so I have a number of friends who specialize in jihadist literature and are always logging onto those websites. And so I have a colleague of mine who makes it a point to basically read every single publication of ISIS, and he texted me as soon as he downloaded their magazine and said that, hey, you know your name's in the latest cover, in the latest magazine. And a few hours later, the FBI as well contacted me and informed me that my name and my picture was in their latest magazine. So basically, within a day, I got
the magazine that we're all aware of, right? Yeah.
Exactly. They have a magazine. It's not sold on your local newsstand. It's actually an online magazine, and it's called a Dabiq. And in its latest issue, they had a color photograph of myself, which I can see on the screen, and they basically called for my assassination and the assassination of another individual as well here in America.
Are you worried?
Of course, I'm worried, of course, but at the same time,
but do you walk around
firstly,
looking over your
person,
shoulder, every moment?
No, not at all. I mean, as a religious person, obviously, I do put my trust in God, and the Quran teaches us if you put your trust in God, He'll take care of you. And secondly, as an American Muslim, really, I'm not concerned about ISIS because they really don't exist in America. I actually feel very safe being in any mosque in North America, or any major convention. I am not worried that Muslims are somehow going to take this call to action and implement it, because I know for a fact that American Muslims really have nothing to do with ISIS. So, of course, there's an element of precaution.
What about a lone wolf or someone who is trying to prove something to ISIS so they can join the organization, who may not necessarily be Muslim?
Well, Don, those lone wolves exist on both sides of the spectrum, correct?
Right.
And we just saw the Chapel Hill shooting a few weeks ago, where 3 young Muslim kids were killed by what appears to be a religiously motivated hate crime. So those types of lone wolves exist on both sides of the equation. And where I'm living in America,
well, either way, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with
side.
you, but that's what I said. Are you concerned about any of that on any side? You said you're not walking around looking over your shoulder for any of them.
Well, I mean, looking over my shoulders, it gives us an indication that I'm always worried. Of course, I'm taking some logical precautions, some simple precautions, but in the end of the day, you can't protect yourself against a lone wolf. As long as you've done what you can, you put your trust in God, that's all you can do, really, in the end of the day.
You spoke to the FBI, I understand, today. What did they tell you?
Obviously, they also told me some common sense precautions. They told me to reach out to them in case there's any issue, and there's direct lines of communication between us. As of yet, they're monitoring the situation, and as am I.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think ISIS continues to grow? What is the appeal of this terror organization in your estimation?
Good question. So ISIS is coming out of a particular socio-political circumstance and situation. And one really does need to look at what's happened in Iraq for the last 30 years. The instability, the political revolutions, the chaos that has been generated, the economic sanctions, the bombings, the invasions. ISIS is really the product of socio-political circumstances and not the product of the Quran or the teachings of Islam. And the appeal of ISIS is that they're claiming to fight on behalf of the oppressed, to fight an invading army, and basically that's mainly us, to protect innocent people from the intransigencies of a third party. And there's this romantic, nostalgic notion of reestablishing the caliphate. So there are a few misguided young men and women who idealistically look at these claims and actually believe them at face value. But again, what's the root cause here are political and not theological.
And not theological. Thank you, Yasser Quaddy, Professor. We appreciate it. Please be careful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Coming up, being targeted by ISIS, no laughing matter, of course, but if you don't laugh at this,
this may be the epicenter in the fight over same-sex marriage.
What do we want? Marriage equality! When do we want it? Now!
Granbury, Texas, a small town roughly 65 miles southwest of Dallas, boasts the first town square in Texas.
Welcome to God's country.
The town may be the last to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples.
It's one man and one woman. That is how marriage should be.
Jim Cato and Joe Stapleton have been together for 27 years and were prepared to get married on Monday. It was their first opportunity after the Supreme Court declared gay couples have a constitutional right to marry. They want their license to read Hood County, where they live and pay taxes. But so far the county's clerk, Katie Lang, is holding up the process.
We wanted to be the first people in Hood County to get married. We thought we would be married on Monday, but not going to happen.
Lang initially said she would not issue the licenses because of her own religious objection. But then later in the week, she said she would allow other members in her office to do so. But couples like Jim and Joe have been told the proper paperwork has not arrived. But in similar small counties like San Saba, Texas, the logistical issues have been worked out, and gay couples like Jonathan Means and Jason White successfully obtained a license, while Jim and Joe continue to wait.
When do I come in your office? She said, I don't know. And everything was she didn't know.
Lang's reluctance has sparked a bitter battle from both sides in this normally quiet town. Religious freedom supporters on one side of the street, gay rights activists on the other. One side defending Lang's right to object.
We have a message for Katie Lang. You are not alone. Your community is here with you.
The other demanding she abide by the Supreme Court's order or quit.
Get on board with equality or resign today!
And as many Americans come together to celebrate the country's independence, a Texas-sized battle remains over an issue the highest court thought they'd settle.